We'll be beginning a new shir in Rambam in the laws of matters to do with marriage, chapter 15 at 1 o'clock. Stay tuned. Hello, Leanne.
Hi, Rabbi. How are you?
Good, and you?
Good, thank you.
Where are you signing in from?
Cape Town. Rabbi,
Which
you're in shul, but obviously at home. Hi, everyone else.
Where
Hi,
is it?
Rabbi, everyone.
Hello, Kent.
Hi, John. Hi, Jeff.
Thank God.
Good.
Hello, Jeff.
Hello, Rabbi. Hello, King.
Hello,
Hi.
John.
Hello, John.
I'm just not sure if the YouTube is up and running.
Says so.
Says so, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we will start in a moment. Oh, nice to see real live people. Hello, Dave. Hello, Jeff.
Hi, Rabbi.
This is a phenomenal chapter. We should have 100 people here. This is major, major stuff. And if we have time, I want to tell a few stories at the end that are relevant.
Oh,
So this is really an important chapter. Every chapter is important. Every line, every word of Torah is important. But this is something that I think will generate a lot of questions and discussion, maybe even debate. But very, very important stuff and relevant stuff. At the end, he gives us his secrets of a happy marriage, which may be somewhat controversial in today's day and age. The Rambam lived over 800 years ago in Arab lands, so things were a little bit different then.
that should be interesting.
Stay tuned. Hello, Martin. Hello, Michelle. Hello,
Hello,
Hillary.
Rabbi.
Hello, Brenda.
Good day to you, Rabbi.
We have a minion.
My wife is listening, so go easy on the on the happy marriage business.
Oh, there's something for everyone. Stay tuned.
Yeah, good.
Rabbi might give you a to-do list afterwards, like dishes and things like that.
It's going to give everybody food for thought. Trust me. Hello, Brian.
How are you, Rabbi?
Baruch Hashem and you. Nice to see
Baruch Hashem.
everyone.
Thank God.
Okay. We have a reform minion, so we'll start. Right. So, what did you do yesterday? Yesterday, see, I do the 3-chapter a day cycle. But yesterday you spoke, amongst other things, about conjugal rights. And the husband has a responsibility. It was actually in last week's Parsha. To provide food, clothing, and shelter, and conjugal rights. He may not deny his wife, and yesterday's chapter spoke about what are the norms and the expected duties of a husband, and depending on one's profession and how much he travels, how frequently he can be expected to provide conjugal rights. Now, on this note, halacha 1, ha'isha, the woman has the right to say she's cool. She's gives her husband permission to ignore her conjugal rights. However, don't forget, the husband, the man, we'll learn later that this is a responsibility, a halachic responsibility on the man, that he has to be fruitful and multiply. It was said to Adam and Eve way back Ladies and gentlemen, if there's noise in your environment, please mute yourself. Otherwise, I have to mute everybody, which I'm loath to do in case anyone has a question. So please exercise your own responsibility there. Thank you. So the first commandment in the Bible, the first commandment to the first man and woman in the world, Adam and Eve, be fruitful and multiply. So we're going to learn the halachas. What are the minimum requirements to observe the commandment to be fruitful and multiply? Now, if he has a commandment to be fruitful and multiply and he has not yet fulfilled it, he doesn't have children, then the woman giving her husband permission to ignore her conjugal rights doesn't really work, because he needs to fulfill the mitzvah of procreation. So if he has not yet fulfilled it, he's obligated to engage in intimate relations whenever his conjugal duties require, until he fathers children to the extent that he is obliged. Now, it's a positive commandment of the Torah to be fruitful and multiply. However, even though women, I'm making a sweeping generalization, even though women desire children more than men, that seems to be a fact of life. Of course, there are exceptions, but generally speaking, I think we can make a sweeping generalization that for a woman, it's much more important to be a mother than for the man. Nonetheless, she does not have the biblical commandment to do so. She wants to do so. The man, maybe he needs a commandment. So when does a man become obligated to fulfill this mitzvah? From bar mitzvah? Obviously not. It has to be from when he's considered of marriageable age. We don't believe in procreation outside of marriage. So from age 17, okay, how's that? Now, there are certain circles in the world, in the Jewish world today, where they do get married at 17, believe it or not. In the ultra-Orthodox Hasidic circles, it's not at all unheard of today to get married at 17. In the olden days, it was not at all uncommon. In the Pirkei Avot, it says, Ben Shmona Esrei lechuppah. 18 is the time to go to the chuppah. Here he says if he reaches 20 and is not married and is not procreating, he's considered to have transgressed this mitzvah of being fruitful and multiply. However, if he's occupied with the study of Torah, he's in yeshiva, and he's absorbed in studying Torah, and therefore he doesn't want to marry because he'll have to stop learning and go to work to support his wife, he's permitted to delay marriage. For a person who is occupied in the performance of one mitzvah is freed from the obligation to perform another mitzvah. This is a general rule in the Torah. If you're occupied, involved in doing one mitzvah, you don't have to stop that and interrupt it to do another mitzvah. Halacha 3, when a person's soul desires to study Torah at all times, and he is so obsessed with its study, as was the Talmudic sage Ben Azai. Ben Azai is quoted in Pirkei Avot quite a bit, and in the Gemara, he was a great scholar, and he never married. And when they asked him, why don't you get married? He says, I'm in love with the Torah. I don't have room in my heart for any other love. And he was considered kosher in doing that. But he is definitely the exception. We don't have people of that stature frequently, if at all. So if he's obsessed with the study, as was Ben Azai, and clings to it throughout his life without marrying, then he will not have transgressed. Again, another proviso. This is if he is a very pious person and he's not plagued by any immoral thoughts. If he's going to be busy fantasizing when he lies in bed at night of being with a woman, and it's going to confuse his mind and heart, then he has no business not marrying. He must get married. So this exemption applies, provided a man's natural inclination does not overcome him. But if it does, and he finds himself having all these kinds of thoughts and desires, and it's always in his mind, then he is obligated to marry, even if he's already fathered children. Now he's getting married not to be fruitful and multiply, but to stick on the straight and narrow. Otherwise, he'll go off and who knows what kind of relationships he'll get involved in, because he has these temptations. So that's a reason to marry besides the mitzvah of procreation. And that's actually why one should get married younger. In fact, I just came across a letter from the Rebbe to someone saying that we should try and go back. And this is written, it's a couple of decades ago, but it's in our time. The Rebbe is suggesting the Jewish community should try and go back to getting our children to marry much younger. Today we have a big problem of singles, of people who are 30 and 40, and they delayed getting married because they're busy developing their careers. And now when they're ready for marriage, it's not so simple. So we really would do well if we helped our children get married younger. Okay, now to the mitzvah of procreation, to be fruitful and multiply. What's the minimum to observe this mitzvah? So he says, one boy and one girl. As we see in Genesis, he created them male and female. From this we derive that to observe the mitzvah, to be fruitful and multiply, you have to have a son and a daughter. However, that's not enough. This son and daughter have to themselves be capable of procreation. We want to keep humanity going for posterity. If the son was impotent, or the daughter not able to have children, then he has not fulfilled this mitzvah. So the son and daughter that he has to have, in turn, have to fulfill the mitzvah themselves. So a man is considered to have fulfilled the mitzvah of being fruitful and multiply, even when he fathers children and they die, God forbid, so long as his children have left behind children of their own. Grandchildren are considered to be children. So let's say a person loses his children, God forbid, but before they died, they brought children into the world, then the grandfather has observed the mitzvah. When does this apply? When the person's grandchildren, again, he has a son and a daughter, minimum. And they also, here's a bit of a stickler here, they should be descended from a son and a daughter. It could be that the male grandchild is the son of his daughter and the female is the daughter of his son. It doesn't matter, but they should come from two different children. The son should come from one child and the daughter from another. If, however, he had a son and daughter who both died and one did not leave any children, while one left a son and a daughter, then unfortunately the grandfather is not considered to have fulfilled this mitzvah. Seems quite strict. I haven't actually found a reason for this. Let's see in the footnotes. Anything here in the footnotes? Don't see. No. Okay. 6. Did I do 5? Yeah, 6. Now a person converts to Judaism. They had children before they converted. Do they have to now have more children after they're converted to observe the mitzvah? The good news is the answer is no. So when a convert has fathered children as a Gentile, and both he and they convert, he is considered to have fulfilled this mitzvah. Footnote number 10, by the way, tells us that according to some opinions, even if the children did not convert, he is still, he will still, I don't know, no, it's not that same foot. I saw in other footnotes in the other edition of the Rambam with lots of footnotes, it says that there's opinions that the children don't have to convert for him to observe the mitzvah. By contrast, a freed slave, in the olden days, in ancient times, there were slaves, and if the slave went free, he would usually become Jewish in that process. If he fathered children as a slave, those children are not considered to with those children, he has not fulfilled the mitzvah. He would have to father children after he's been freed, because a slave is not considered to have any paternal lineage, unlike a non-Jew. So therefore, if the so we see here that the purpose of marriage has many purposes. We need companionship, we need love, we need support. But a main fundamental principle of marriage is procreation. So therefore, a man should not marry a barren woman, says number 7, or an elderly woman who's past menopause. An Ilonit is a woman who cannot give birth, or a minor who is not yet fit to bear a child. You could marry minors, by the way. In the olden days, they would get married much younger even. But he says it's permissible. Unless he's already fulfilled the mitzvah of being fruitful and multiplying, maybe this is a second marriage, or he has another wife with whom he can father children. Don't forget, by biblical law, polygamy was permissible, and the Rambam lived in Arab countries where the ban on polygamy had not yet taken place. It was made in Europe by Rabbeinu Gershom roughly 1,000 years ago, before the Rambam, but it was mainly for Ashkenazi communities. It took some time for the Sephardi communities to go along with the ban on polygamy. When a man has married a woman and remained married to her, this is a difficult one. If we have time, I want to tell you a story about this. When a man has married a woman, remained married for 10 years, and they haven't had any children, he's supposed to divorce her, pay her ketubah money, the anti-nuptial contract, and marry a woman who is able to bear children for him, because he has to fulfill the mitzvah. If he doesn't want to divorce her, he's compelled to do so. He has to divorce her, because he has to fulfill the mitzvah of procreation. And if she's not able to, unfortunately, he has to find another wife. He says, but I'm happy with this wife, so I want to have children, No, you have to marry a woman who can give you children. They even have to beat him until he agrees to give her a divorce. This is quite the radical stuff here. Stay tuned for my story before you bombard me with questions. Even if he says, okay, I won't be intimate with her, but we'll live together, not acceptable. He has to divorce her and marry someone who can bear him children. Now, this is not practiced today. Let me hasten to add. It has not been practiced for many, many years. So relax. Number 8, if they've lived together for 10 years and no children, and listen to this terminology, he releases semen as one shoots an arrow, which means that he is virile and he is capable of fathering a child. This is an old-fashioned terminology. So clearly then, the problem lies with her, that she has a biological problem in conceiving. So he should divorce her without paying her the ketubah. She is, however, entitled to additional sums if the ketubah was increased. The rationale being that she shouldn't be treated worse than a woman who was an islanded, who was unable to bear children, and the husband didn't know when they got married. So we're assuming here that he had every impression that she was able to have children, and it turns out that she's not. Now, number 9, the following rules apply where there's a dispute with regard to who is suffering the affliction. Who is the one who is impotent? Where does the fertility problem lie, with the husband or with the wife? Today we're very advanced in fertility treatment, but in the olden days it was much more primitive. So we don't know where the problem lies. The husband claims it's her fault. She claims it's his fault. And she knows because he does not release semen as one shoots an arrow. Her word is accepted because the Rambam says she can feel during intercourse whether he is doing it in that manner. Let's move on. If she says, I don't know if it's me or him, then she's not entitled to being paid out in full. And there's a halachic principle here. It's called Hamoitzi Mechavere Olav Haraya, that, what do I say in secular law? Possession is 9/10 of the law, right? That's a secular proverb. So who has possession of the money? The husband. He has to pay her if they get divorced. But she cannot say with certainty that it's his problem, not her problem. So if she says she doesn't know, then he doesn't have to pay her out in full unless we can determine. But if he says it's her fault and she says it's his fault, she is the one who's believed, because she can feel whether or not he releases semen as one shoots an arrow, and he is not able to make that distinction. Number 10. When a woman demands of her husband to divorce her after 10 years of marriage because she has not given birth and she claims it's his problem and she would love to have children, so she is saying she needs a divorce so she can remarry and have children, even though she doesn't have the commandment, the strict biblical commandment to be fruitful and multiply, but we accept her claim that she wants to have children. And even on a practical level, in the olden days, they had the very pragmatic reason. She needs sons, not just to satisfy her heart, but she needs sons for practical reasons, to assist her in her old age. Therefore, he should be compelled to divorce her. So she wants a divorce, he doesn't, he is compelled to divorce her. But if he doesn't want to divorce her, he only has to give her the extra, not the essential ksuba money. Now, what if he is a traveling salesman and he's traveling all over the world half the time? Maybe he's a sailor. We learned yesterday's chapter, I think, spoke about sailors. So he's not home for a long time. So you cannot count the 10 years of marriage that they haven't been able to be blessed with a child, when maybe half of those 10 years or a third of those 10 years or a tenth of those 10 years he hasn't been around. So he says you actually deduct that time if he's away, or he's been ill in hospital, or he was in prison, God forbid. The time that they did not live together is not included in the calculation of the 10 years. So you would subtract that time before requiring them to divorce. If a woman miscarries, the 10 years are recalculated from the day of the miscarriage. So she did conceive. She's capable of conceiving. So he can't claim that it's her fault. So we start again now. What if she's had 3 successive miscarriages? Then it looks like she can conceive, but she has a problem carrying and delivering the child, which is also a problem. So, and there's the possibility that she will never carry a child full term. So the husband will not be able to have children from her. So if she had 3 miscarriages, then he may divorce her, but he has to pay her the full ksuba. Now, if they have a dispute, he claims she miscarried, she claims she does not miscarry, her claim is believed. Because she would not want to give herself the title, the dubious title of a barren woman, of an infertile woman. So if she's had a miscarriage, that means she's able to conceive. So if she had a miscarriage, that means she's able to, so she would not deny that she had miscarried. If he claims she miscarried twice and she claims she miscarried 3 times, again, she's believed. So in both instances, he should divorce her and pay her the money of the ksubah. He may require her to take a rabbinic oath that she did not miscarry or that she miscarried 3 times before he pays out. 14. When a woman marries a man and remains 10 years with no children and is divorced, she is still permitted to marry another man. We don't say that, no, she's infertile, don't marry her. No, maybe she wasn't blessed to have children with husband A, but with husband B, it'll work. If she remained married to the second husband for 10 years and still no children, then we don't recommend that she marry a third. And if she does, she should be divorced. Unless he has another wife, or he has already fulfilled the mitzvah of being fruitful and multiply. In the days when polygamy were permissible, then he could keep her as a second wife. 15. Following rules apply when a woman comes to court and claims that her husband is impotent. And she's not going to have children. So it sounds like she wants a divorce. So the judges should try to arrange a compromise because it's not yet 10 years. I must tell you that it happens many times that in the beginning of a marriage, the intimate relationship does not work. Sometimes a marriage is not consummated till days, weeks, or months later, because it, unfortunately, not everybody has it so easily. But with time and patience and a little counseling and help, we can help people that they should be able to. So we don't want to rush into a divorce. So we say you should wait, even if you have to wait 10 years. So we protract the negotiations with her. We don't consider her as a rebellious woman who refuses to live with her husband, which is grounds for divorce in itself. But they keep negotiating until they can reach a compromise or until they can hopefully get their act together. 16. Although a man has fulfilled the mitzvah of being fruitful and multiplying, he's bound by a rabbinic commandment not to stop being fruitful and multiplying as long as he's able to be physically potent. Anyone who adds a soul to the Jewish people is considered as if he has built an entire world. It says that Mashiach is waiting to come until all Jewish souls that are destined to be born will be born. So therefore, another reason to have larger families. So generally speaking, religious people do have larger families. We'll soon speak about the issue of contraception in a moment. Contraception is not so simple because we should continue to be fruitful and multiply. Similarly, as we said before, besides the issue of procreation, a man should not live without a wife, so he should not be tempted to immoral thoughts. He should be able to satisfy himself legally and morally with the woman he's married to. Similarly, a woman should not live without a man, so that she will not be suspected of immoral conduct. So marriage is the best status that we look for for both men and women. And if people have been widowed or divorced, we encourage them to remarry. Okay, here comes some interesting stuff. Please don't shout at the Rambam or me just yet. Wait till we get to the end. We're almost finished. From 17 to the end. Some are to the right and some are to the left. So stay tuned. You'll see at the end, I think it's pretty balanced. It is an obligation for a man to admonish his wife. What does that mean? He should wag his finger at his wife and rebuke her. It means that if he sees that she is behaving in an inappropriate, immoral fashion, she's flirting with other men or things like that, he should tell her nicely that this is not the way to behave. Our sages declared a man will not admonish his wife unless a spirit of purity enters his being, meaning he's doing it out of a good reason, that he's worried that she's going off on the wrong path. He shouldn't do it more than necessary, and hopefully she'll cooperate. If not, there was something called the sota. The sota we read in the book of Numbers, Parshas Nosoi, beginning of Bamidbar, a woman who was accused by her husband of infidelity. And he warned her not to closet herself with Mr. X. He sees her flirting with Mr. X repeatedly, and she ignores his words. And then people come and tell the husband that they saw her closeting herself behind closed doors with this same Mr. X, and they were there long enough to have had an immoral relationship, but we don't know what happened behind closed doors. Maybe they had a platonic discussion. Maybe they have a business meeting. Maybe they were playing Scrabble. I have no idea. And nobody knows. So there was then the test of the bitter waters, which in the temple times, he would take her to the Kohen and she would drink this bitter waters potion, and miraculously it would prove whether she was guilty or innocent. Today we don't have that. But we should try and keep our partners on the straight and narrow. Here's another interesting thing. A man should never compel his wife to engage in intimacy against her will. Instead, relations should be with her agreement, preceded by conversation and a spirit of joy. So today you might call it foreplay or whatever, but it has to be by mutual consent. Do you know that the Rambam rules, we'll have it probably soon, not today, marital rape was punishable by Jewish law, and if the husband hurt his wife in the process, he was obligated to pay financial damages to his wife. This is more than 800 years ago, the Rambam made this ruling. That's still being debated in secular courts to this day. There are countries and even places in liberal America, there are states that do not yet have this statute on the books, because marriage, the old-fashioned traditionalist view was that, you're married, it's my right to have you when I want you. This is not the Jewish view. Similarly, it works both ways. Our sages commanded a woman to conduct herself modestly, even at home, not to proliferate levity or frivolity before her husband, nor to request intimacy explicitly, verbally. Rather, it should be done, body language, rather than being explicit and dirty talk, so to speak. She should not deny her husband intimacy to punish him, to cause him anguish, so that he should increase his love for her. Instead, this may sound controversial to the modern woman, she should oblige him whenever he desires. But again, he was already told not to just expect it any time, and he should do it in a loving way. She should keep her distance from his relatives and the members of his household so that he will not be provoked by jealousy. Basically means she shouldn't flirt with anybody, and should avoid scandalous situations, indeed any trace of scandal, God forbid. Now here's some very, very good traditional advice for marriage. 19. Our sages commanded that a man honor his wife more than himself and love her as he loves himself. If he has the financial resources, he should offer her benefits in accordance with his resources. He should support her in accordance with his means. If he can afford it, he should let her go shopping to her heart's delight. He should not cast a superfluous measure of fear over her. He shouldn't threaten her and intimidate her. He should talk with her gently, being neither sad nor angry. How is this for great advice? 800 years ago, I would deem this completely relevant and pertinent in 2021 as well. Again, I said there's balance. He has his responsibilities and she has her responsibilities to him. Number 20, similarly, the sages commanded a woman to honor her husband exceedingly, to be in awe of him, to think that he's awesome. Okay, every husband would love his wife to think he's awesome, but it means here to respect him, not to put him down, especially in front of other people. She should carry out her deeds according to his directives. She should look up to him as an officer or a king. Wow. Now, this might sound extreme, but you know what the rabbi said? They said, if you want your wife to treat you as a king, you must treat her as a queen. So that's a good commensurate relationship. She should shun things that he disdains. So don't cook what he doesn't like. You know, that's bad advice. This is the custom of holy and pure Jewish women and men in their marriage relationships. And these ways will make their marriages pleasant and praiseworthy. Okay, this is, I think, great advice. Some of it may sound very old-fashioned, but I think basically it is very, very pertinent and relevant today. Now, I want to share with you a story or two if we have time. So a story, so first of all, halachically. So contraception. Contraception is halachically complicated. You can't just have a son and daughter and then go on to contraception, because being fruitful and multiply means the more the merrier. That's why religious people have large families. So contraception is permissible, but there's not a blanket permission for it. Ideally, one should speak to their local Orthodox rabbi about the parameters and also what type of contraception, because certain types of contraception, in fact, I'll say this, today in South Africa, the most popular type of contraception that is in fact promulgated by governments is the condom. And the condom is absolutely prohibited in Jewish law. The most permissible is a birth control pill. But we don't have time for this whole discussion. But I just wanted to say that, and if it's relevant, one should speak to their local Orthodox rabbi. Now, to end with a story. A couple in Talmudic times was married 10 years and no children, so they decided to get divorced. But they loved each other, but it was very sad that they had to get divorced. So the husband says to his wife, we had a party when we got married, let's have a party when we get divorced, because we love each other. It's a tragedy that we don't have children. We have to get divorced and try with someone else. So he made a big dinner party for all his friends and family to celebrate the divorce. Eh? I know people today who celebrate their divorce too, but that's for different reasons. That's a sad party. This was a sad party too, but it was done in good faith and good spirit. And in the party, he says to his wife, "My dear wife, we've lived together 10 years. We loved each other. It's a tragedy we haven't been able to have children together, so we have to get divorced. But I say to you, please, whatever you want in my house, in my estate, is yours." She says, "Thank you very much." The party goes on, and she plies him with wine, one glass after another, until he falls asleep and he's out. from all the wine she passed to him. She orders the servants to carry him to her home, to her place. They had his and her places already. He wakes up in the morning. He says, "Where am I?" She says, "You told me I could take anything I want. I chose you." Isn't that beautiful? So what do? They didn't know what to do. So they went to Rabbi Shimon. And they heard Rabbi Shimon hears the story. And he too was moved and touched by this beautiful story of love. And he blessed them. He said, "Stay married. I bless you with a child." And they had children. It was a happy ending. Okay, now I can't resist telling you one final story, if you have time to stick around another few minutes. One final story from our own time that happened with the Rebbe. There was a couple in Israel, married 10 years, no children, and they didn't know what to do. Should they get divorced or not? So they asked the famous rabbi in Israel, and he said, "You should get divorced." But they wanted more opinions, so they asked the Rebbe. The Rebbe said, "Don't get divorced." In the end, they went with the rabbi in Israel, and they did get divorced. No sooner do they get divorced, guess what happens? She discovers she's pregnant. Fantastic. You could remarry the woman you divorced. It's not a problem. But here there was a problem. What problem could there be?
If he was a Kohen.
Exactly. He was a Kohen. A Kohen may not marry a divorcee, even his own divorcee. Listen to this tragedy. They didn't have a problem with each other. They only got divorced because they didn't have children. And now she's pregnant, and they would have been together, but he didn't listen to the rabbi. He listened to the other rabbi, and now he can't remarry her because he's a Kohen. What a tragedy. What a human tragedy. So he writes a letter to the Rebbe apologizing that he didn't listen to his advice. But now he's stuck in this terrible, tragic situation. Does the Rebbe have any advice for him? And he promises to listen this time. The Rebbe gives him a very strange, enigmatic answer. The answer was, "Go talk to your mother." Had no idea what this means, but he went to talk to his mother, tells her the story, and the mother breaks down crying and says to him, "My son, we never told you. You were adopted. And therefore your father, who was a Kohen, was not your biological father, so you are actually not a Kohen. So you may remarry the wife you divorced." And there was a happy ending there too. Have a great week, guys.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thanks, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're very
Thank you,
welcome.
Thanks, Rabbi. Rabbi, can I ask one quick question?
Yeah. Okay.
What about the modern practice of IVF, where a couple can't have children and then
So
they have this?
when IVF first came out, the rabbis were very loath to permit it. But since then, they've done a lot of work with it. And a community like ours, we have Malka Ella Fertility Fund that helps people pay for IVF when it is done with the advice and guidance of Orthodox rabbis to make sure that it is done halachically correctly. So if you can't just go and do it, you have to know the halachic parameters. And if you do it halachically, it is permissible. And we have experts here in Johannesburg and in Cape Town who can guide you, ask your rabbi, and who'll put you in touch with the specialists who deal with these cases.
Thanks. Thank you.
Any other questions before I sign off?
No, Rabbi.
Have a
you,
great
Rabbi.
week, guys. Have a great week.
Rabbi.
Thank you. Thank you.
Must get your phone.